Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for stopping by and checking out this video. In today's video, I want to talk about shooting in small spaces. A lot of times we don't have a ton of space. Not everybody has, a huge studio to shoot in. If you're like me, I know a lot of times I actually just shoot in my living room, as you can see here. So it was really kind of hard to get the shot that I needed. So I want to kind of go over a few things that might be able to help you guys out and make it look like you actually have a bigger space than what you actually have. So I do have quite a bit of information here around the edges. So if I want to extend this out or adjust this, I can do that. First thing I want to do is I want to hit Control or Command J to duplicate my image. This backdrop here is from Kate Backdrop. It is a hand painted canvas backdrop. I have like 3 of them now, and I'll tell you what, they are some amazing backdrops. I'll put the link down in the description. This is not paid for by Kate Backdrop, although I did receive the backdrop from them. But yeah, anyways, let's get it going. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the crop here, and notice I got it set at 5x7. That's the size that I want. Now the problem is if I leave it like this and crop it, first off the floor is gonna be a little uneven, and then it's also, if I go to turn it here, it's gonna cut off even more of the image. The reason why I duplicated the layer and made sure that layer was selected, and I'm doing this first, is because I want to use some of this information to fill in these gaps. So I'm going to go ahead and spread this out as big as I need it. And we're going to go maybe about right there. And then maybe we'll even move it over just a little bit, try and get it a little bit more centered. And then I'm going to make sure content aware is selected. Delete crop pixels is not selected. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit enter because that's the framing that I want. And this might take a couple seconds, but what it's going to do here is it's going to fill in all these areas with that content aware fill. All right. So obviously it did a pretty good job. It filled in this area pretty well down here. We still have an issue up top there. I'll make a new layer here, grab my brush tool, and I'll show you these. So we got this area here is a problem. This is a problem. And then our lines, kind of straight there, so we should be good. So there's that. So now all we got to do is we got to fix these 2 areas here. So I'm just going to grab my patch tool here, and I'm going to draw a circle around this one here, and then I'm just going to pull it down. Really simple. So that just kind of grabs from this area and fills it in here, and then it's basically does the same thing that content aware fill did. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. The difference down here though is I can't just really grab from anywhere. I'm going to have to make sure I kind of line this up. So I circle that, grab this and pull it over, and I want to stay in line with these lines at the bottom here. Maybe about right there. That looks good. There's still a little bit of a harsh line here because of the change in lighting. If that doesn't work exactly how you want, but it gets you close, go ahead and grab your clone stamp tool, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to just kind of grab from here, and then I have my flow at 1%. I grab from here, and then I'm just going to move this over and line it up, and I'm just going to start painting that in with a low flow and just kind of blend it. And then it'll blend in real nice. All right. Never even known that it was there. All right. So I do see another little problem spot, and it's going to be kind of hard to see in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a curves layer just to pull it up so you can see. See this area here? It looks like we got an issue there. And then I also want to get rid of these little white spots on the backdrop. Now, this backdrop is actually upside down right now. The reason why I did this is because I couldn't find my clamps. It actually comes with like a wooden rod attached to it. So I just kind of draped it over the backdrop stand. All right, so I'm just gonna keep my clone stamp tool here, and then I have it set to current and below. I don't want to sample from this curves layer because it'll make it lighter. So I'm going to set it for current and blow instead of all layers or current layer. And then I'm going to grab from down here. And then, there we go. Blend that in a little bit there. All right, and then for this area, I'm gonna kind of do the same thing. I'm just gonna grab from here, pull down, and then just slowly start the blending process. Okay, and then again, grab again, boom. There we go. Make sure you blend it nice and even, and then I'm gonna just grab my spot healing brush, and then for this I can actually delete that curves layer, and then I'm just gonna spot heal right on top of that layer there. All right, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's good enough. All right, so now that I'm satisfied, I think that's pretty straight. Got rid of all those little discrepancies up in the corner, down here, and then the couch on the side here. I'm going to go ahead and go to layer, flatten image, and I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. One thing that you could do, let's say you had a small area and you wanted to actually make it look like you are in a bigger area. After you get everything done, you can go back into your crop tool and then just pull however much more room you want. Maybe like that. Go ahead and hit enter. And boom, we're good. Actually, I kind of like that. So we might just keep that. Now, it did kind of mess up, some of the stuff down here, but I'm not really worried about it. Nobody's really going to look at that. Go ahead and flatten this again. Next thing I want to tackle is I'm going to go in here and grab a hue saturation. And I'm sorry if I'm flying through this. I just don't want this video to be 2 hours long. So using the hue saturation adjustment layer, I'm going to use this little hand tool here, and I'm going to click on the white and see how down here it shows that there's yellows. If I click in different spots, it's going to show me different colors. So it looks like there's greens, reds, yellows. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that, and I'm going to just pull the saturation back, maybe around 68 or so, and then pull it up. And then I'm just going to continue to do that in different areas until I feel like it's good. All right, so now I'm going to click here. Let me grab my brush tool. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to actually invert this. So I'm going to hit Controller Command I to make that black, and then I got my brush tool. I'm going to hit X on the keyboard, or you can hit this little arrow here to toggle back and forth. So in order for me to make this effect visible, I need to paint with white. So I'm going to paint with white and reveal that. And notice my flow and opacity are at 100%. And I'm just going to paint this all over here, and then this should get rid of pretty much all the color cast. I'm basically just purifying the white in the dress. And then the nice thing about this is once you get all of your basic stuff down and you get it looking good without any sort of color grade or anything, then you can add whatever color grade you want on top of it. The key is to get it looking right, and then add your color grade onto it after that. All right, so I'm gonna try and fly through this as fast as I can. I'm not gonna fast forward it though, because I really want you guys to see, exactly what I'm doing. Obviously, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna take your time. You're not gonna, speed through it like I am here. And if you accidentally go over, like say I accidentally go over the skin and it pulls out the color, you can either just hit Controller Command Z to go back, or you can hit X to flip to black, and then you can paint it back in. So it's very, very non-destructive. And then go ahead and flip back to white. Okay, so we got that area. Get this over here. Just a little bit more, guys. Bear with me here. See, like I see there's a spot that I kind of went over. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back, hit X, flip back, and then paint these areas back in. All right. And then I'll, once I'm done with this, I'll show you a before and after. That'll show you what we did. All right. So we got, oh, it's the spot here. All right, so grab that. Man, there's a lot of color in that spot. Color cast usually happens when either your white balance is a little bit off, which I like to shoot a little bit warm, so that's definitely going to throw it off for skin tones. And then also the light can bounce different colors off of different surfaces. If the light hits her, it could actually bounce her skin color onto the dress. Or like, let's say you're shooting outside in direct sunlight and you're shooting right in like wide open. That's how you get that green cast on people, is because that light's reflecting off of the grass and it's reflecting up onto either their skin or their dress or whatever. Maybe I'll show you guys how to fix that in the next video or in a video down the line somewhere. But all right, so we got before and after. So it didn't really look that bad here, and you might not even been able to tell had I not actually did this. But when you hit that and you turn that back on, I mean, that makes a huge difference. I mean, that's white. That's definitely white. So it looks like I actually missed a spot right down here. All right, so we're done with that. We're gonna try and tackle these discrepancies in the skin tone here. If you notice, there's quite a bit of red right in this area. And this is kind of typical, especially like if somebody has sunburn or, you know, anything like that. We were actually out in the sun pretty much all day. We went swimming and stuff like that. So she got a little burnt, but we're going to go ahead and tackle those areas there. And then you also notice that there's some spots that actually have some yellow. So we have two different colors here that we're trying to fix, and I'm just trying to kind of highlight these for you a little bit. So you got a little bit here, all those different discrepancies there. So let's go ahead and delete that layer, and I'll show you how to fix them. So we're actually going to use quite a few hue saturation adjustment layers. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this next one, and then this is strictly to fix the skin tones. This is how I do this. So I'm going to grab the hand tool again. I'm going to click on the problem area. Obviously, it's going to show up reds because it's obviously really red. I'm going to pull the hue all the way over. And then I'm going to go down here to this range, and I'm going to pull from the right side to fine tune the reds. If I wanted to fine tune the yellows, I would pull from the left side. So, and I'll show you that next. So I'm going to pull from the right side and see how it just gradually changes and it gradually selects, you know, different areas. So I'm going to pull it all the way down like this. Then I'm going to start pulling it up until I think I got all the red that I want to be able to maybe adjust and get out of it. So maybe around there. So notice that it's actually selecting some of the background. Let me turn it off and on. See how it's kind of selecting some of the background too? And then it might even, yeah, it's selecting some of the belt here too. So what that means, we're going to have to mask it. So before we adjust this again, we can go ahead and hit B for the brush tool. And then I'm going to change it to black, flow at 100%, opacity at 100%. And we can actually invert this, and then we can paint it on. So I'm just going to paint this So I'll switch to white since I'm going to paint it on. If it wasn't on the backdrop and it was just in a couple little places, then I might have just painted it off. But let's go ahead and paint this on. So it's going to look really weird here for a minute. Keep in mind her lips are really red. So obviously I don't want to change the color of her lips. I want her lips to stay red. So notice I'm avoiding that area. I'm just kind of going around it. Looks like I did get a little bit on there. And you can do this either before or after you adjust the colors, but I like to do it this way because I can actually see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of brush it all over her skin wherever I think it needs to go. And just missing those areas like the belt and the lips. And maybe hit the legs. Now the legs are going to be a little bit darker and a little bit more saturated just because they're in a darker area here. So once you got that done, you're going to go ahead and pull this back down to 0. And then you're going to slowly pull it up. And you'll start to see those colors change. It might be kind of hard to see here, but I guarantee you it is changing, and I'll show you here in a second exactly what it's doing. So I'm going to go maybe around 13. By me pulling this to the right, I'm actually adding more yellow into those reds. If I zoom in here and I'll go right by underneath her eye and I toggle this off and on, see how it just kind of evened out that skin tone a little bit? So now we're going to do the same thing with the yellows. So hue saturation, grab the little hand tool, click anywhere here on her skin. It can be anywhere on the skin, it doesn't really matter. And then pull it all the way over again. And then this time you're going to pull from the left. So pull from the left and you're going to select the areas that are more yellow. All right. So there we go. All right. So there's really not a whole lot that I really want to change here in the yellows. Maybe just like that. And again, it's tackling some areas that I don't want it to, so I'm going to go ahead and hit B for my brush tool, hit Controller Command I, and then I will paint this back on here. And just being careful not to go in her hair because there was some yellow in her hair and I really don't want to make her hair like any more red than what it is. Okay. So just go over those areas. I don't know if there's any down here, maybe a little bit. All right. So now that we got that covered, we'll go back in here and it actually, since I moved this slider, it actually changed it to yellows. So now we pull it all the way back, and then instead of going to the right to make it more yellow, we're going to go left and make it more red to get it to match more with what we just did. Okay, so if I put both of these in a group, Controller Command G, I zoom in a little bit here, and I turn that off and on, you see that her skin is a little bit more even. Okay. All right, so next up. So the next thing I want to do is I want to use another hue saturation, and this time I'm going to use it to change color. So there's, you can fix skin tone with it, you can change colors with it, you can purify whites with it. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with the hue saturation. So let me click there, and then I will take the hue slider and I'm just going to slide it over until I get the color I want. So I'm thinking maybe right around there, right around 65. So that kind of matches the background a little bit more. So I'll pull this out and then I'll turn it off and on. And then now you can see that that matches a little bit better. All right, so here's before and after on everything that we pretty much just did. Makes it look a little bit better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stamp visible here. So I just hit Shift, Option, Command, and E on a Mac. I think it's Control, Alt, Shift, E on PC. And then I'm going to run my frequency separation action. And if you don't know what frequency separation is, there's tons of videos out there for it. Go ahead and check those out. Maybe I'll actually do a video on this, but to be honest with you, I'm not really going too far into this. I'm just going to kind of smooth out the skin a little bit, but I'm not going to do it the way that most people would do it because I don't want it to take forever. I just want to do a really quick skin smoothing. And it's definitely effective. So what this actually does, I'll just kind of explain it real quick, is it separates your texture. So here's your texture layer. And then here's your tone layer. So it separates your texture and your tones so you can work on those separately. So anything that I do to this layer is not going to affect this top layer. If I turn this group on and off, there's no change. It does absolutely nothing. But now if I go, let me go to this low layer here, which is going to be your tones layer. Grab the lasso tool, and then I'm just going to make a quick selection right around here. And all I want to do is I just want to grab as much of her skin as I can without grabbing too many details, like her eyes and the edges and the clothes and stuff like that. So you can add and subtract to this by holding Alt or Option, and that will give you this little minus. And then you can subtract it like this. And then you can also hold the Shift button or the Shift key, and then that gives you this plus, and then you can just add to your selection here. And that was really sloppy. But see how I went over this area here? If you accidentally do that, you can hold Alt or Option, and then you can subtract from that area. So just go back over it with Alt or Option, and then it'll subtract. And then you just do this for pretty much the whole image for her skin or whatever you're trying to smooth out. Doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to select all of it. Just get as much as you can. And like I said, I'm going to do this fairly quick because my biggest thing is just teaching you guys how to do it, and then you guys put it in motion, and hopefully it helps you guys out. All right. And I know most people would fast forward through this, but a lot of my viewers have told me not to fast forward through it because they'd like to see the whole process. So if you don't want to see the whole process, you can definitely fast forward. But it's only really going to take me about a minute here. All right, so I got that. Just got to do the legs. And once I'm done with the legs, we can move on to the next step. This back one here, and I really don't even need to do this, but because you're not really going to see it. But all right, so now that we got everything selected and everything not selected that we don't want selected, you're going to make sure that, again, you're on this layer here, this lower layer, your tones layer. You're going to hit Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And then however much you want to blur it is going to be completely up to you. So I'm usually in between like maybe 5 and 11, depending on the file size and how close up they are and what kind of skin they have. So you're just going to have to kind of play around with it and get the radius that you want. So 5.6 for me on this one is pretty good. If you go too high, it can start to look a little bit plasticky. So we'll go ahead and deselect that. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit just so you guys can see. And I'm going to turn that off and on. Off and on. And you'll see it basically just kind of softens the skin just a little bit and gives it a little bit more of a dreamy look. All right. This next thing I'm going to do is dodge and burn. And I'm sure you've probably heard this before. I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to use curves layers. That's what a lot of people use. But let me show you real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up to right before it starts to clip. And then here's what I'm going to do different. I'm going to change it from normal to luminosity. And the reason why I want to do that is because I don't want it to affect the tones. I just want to affect the light. That's it. All right, so I'm going to hit Control or Command I to flip that to a hidden layer. And then I'm going to create another curves adjustment layer. And I'm going to pull down this time, and that's going to darken it. And then I'm going to change this to luminosity. So by changing it to luminosity on both of these, I'll kind of explain. So basically, anytime you darken, it's going to add saturation. Anytime you lighten, it's going to pull away saturation. So it's going to delete saturation. So by setting it to luminosity, the saturation stays the same and it just affects the light. So we'll go ahead and go in here and name this. This will be dodge. And then this will be burn. And I can't stress this enough. Make sure you label your stuff because I didn't down here and I probably should have. I'm going to hit shift and then select both of these and then hit Control or Command G to throw those in a group. And then I'll rename this group DB for dodge and burn. Okay. The point of this is actually just to accentuate the light. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my paintbrush. I'm going to make sure it's on white. I'm going to bring the flow all the way down to 1. Leave the opacity at 100. And then I'm going to start dodging. So I'm actually going to come in here a little bit close. And just so you guys can see it, I'm going to use a couple helper layers. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a color fill and select gray somewhere around there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Hit OK. And then go down to color. It converts it to black and white without losing any detail, without processing anything. Then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add another curves layer. And then I'm going to pull it down and then pull it up to add contrast, just so you guys can see these areas better. If you look in this little area here, see how there's kind of a harsh transition here? I want to try and fix that. So this is more of a micro dodge and burning, which I'm not going to get into a whole lot, but I will do a video on that eventually. And then I'm just going to kind of smooth out these transitions here. So I'm just painting with white and just smoothing out these transition where it goes from darker to lighter. And then maybe on some of these like little spots here, you can actually do like a whole retouching with just dodge and burn, believe it or not. Like a lot of your really high-end retouchers, they use dodge and burn probably more than anything. So you can go in and just, any of these little dark spots, just dodge the dark spots and then burn the light spots just to kind of get it to match a little bit better. Okay. The reason why I wanted to do this was more of a global thing. So I want to kind of accentuate and blend some of these areas that might be a little off. I don't want them completely gone because you can really mess up the structure of somebody's face by doing this. So you want to be kind of subtle. So I'm just going to dodge around these areas here just enough to kind of soften it. Okay. And then I'm actually going to do the opposite, and I'm going to burn here in some of these lighter areas just to kind of mix that in a little bit here and just to soften that transition. Okay. And then you can actually go in, and I'm actually going to darken this area just a tad bit just to kind of mix it in. Let me turn these two layers off, and then I'll show you there's before and after. Before, after. So it just kind of blended it a little bit. I'm actually going to use this here to kind of accentuate some of the shadows and highlights. So if I just paint with white on my burn to burn this down just a little bit, maybe right here on our cheekbone, burn that down just a little bit. Underneath, anywhere you have shadow, that's where you want to burn. Anywhere you have highlight, that's where you want to dodge. So just kind of go over all those different areas. So maybe on the sides of the arms, I'm going to burn that down just a little bit. On the bottom here, maybe here a little bit. Maybe underneath here. On the sides again. So again, anywhere where you already see shadow, you're just going to accentuate the shadows. And then you can also use it to kind of smooth some stuff out. So there's a harsh transition here. So I'm just going to burn in some of this light spot here just to even it out just a little bit. I don't want to even it completely out because it'll mess up the shape. But yeah, and then maybe the collarbone here, maybe darken that down just a little bit. I'm actually going to do the dress last and I'll show you why here in a minute. So now I want to go into my dodge, smooth out this transition here just a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of accentuate these areas. Again, anywhere there's light, you're going to paint light, and then anywhere that there's dark, you're going to paint dark. So let me zoom in here. You can even go like under the lip here, maybe on the top of the lip, that line there. Maybe back here just a little bit. Maybe accentuate that right here on the ribs. Okay, and then on the arms, just kind of brighten that up just a little bit. Maybe I'll even this out just a tad bit. And this takes a little bit of getting used to. I'm still not perfect at it. I definitely don't claim to be, but I do feel as though I'm getting better. And it's nice to have you guys here learning with me. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and keep doing this. And again, just accentuating where there's already light. And then maybe, you know, kind of adjusting these transitions a little bit. Maybe I want to go back to my burn and just burn that area down there. All right, so let me dodge a little bit of the legs, but I don't want the legs to be accentuated too much because they're in shadow already as it is. So maybe just pop a little bit of light in there just so you know that they're there. And then maybe even on the shoes here, maybe dodge that just a little bit. All right. And notice we still haven't done anything with the dress. So let me turn this off and on. So just kind of evening stuff out and then accentuating a little bit. Now we'll go on to the dress, and we're actually going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to pop this up. I'm going to set it to luminosity, controller command I. I'm going to rename this to Dodge 2. Create another curve. Pull it down. And set it to luminosity. Maybe pull it down just a little bit more. And then controller Command I, rename this burn to, and then I'm going to hit shift and select both of these, controller Command G, and then I'll rename this to DB dress, because this is what we're going to use to dodge and burn the dress. Let's go to our dodge layer, and this time let's go ahead and up the flow a little bit, maybe to like 7 or 8. All right, and then actually let's do burn first, because I feel it's a little bit easier when I'm doing this part to burn than it is to dodge, so I can actually see it a little bit better. So we'll go ahead and burn these areas down. And if you want to get rid of wrinkles, you can actually use dodge and burn for that too. So like, let's say this wrinkle here, like I can go over it with the burn, and then I can go over the dark line with the dodge. Now this takes a little getting used to be able to do this, and you would probably want to use a little bit lower flow, and probably I'll use a Wacom tablet. I'm actually not using a tablet right now, although I do have one. I'm just using the trackpad. But yeah, you can dodge and burn back and forth with this and get those wrinkles out, but I'm not gonna mess with that today. So let's go ahead and continue like accentuating some of these areas that are already kind of in shadow. And I won't take too long. All right, so that's good there. Let's maybe do a little bit of burning here. Maybe do like a little bit of a gradient. And then a little bit there, a little bit here, maybe a little here. And then I actually want to kind of burn all this down. So I'm just going to go over this light area just to get it darkened down just a little bit. It's just a little bit too much light for me there. All right, so there's pretty much, that's my burn. Now we'll go to the dodge, and then I'll go kind of like around these edges. Let me zoom in so you can see, because it's really kind of hard to see when it's zoomed out. So I'll go kind of around, and you can take your time. You can go as much in detail as you want. I'm not going to go into too much detail, and I generally don't spend too much time on doing this, just accentuating stuff. Now, if I'm actually doing retouching, it's going to be a lot more tedious. I can spend hours on one picture just, going crazy retouching. All right. So there's that, and then we'll go back here and maybe pop some light back in there. Maybe down in the bottom by the